Pagi Pak Direktur. Pak
Baik,
Yusuf.
belum nih? Udah ya? Selamat pagi Pak Dubes. Apa kabar Pak?
Alhamdulillah Pak. Pagi Pak Yusron. Pak Daryanto. Pagi.
Selamat pagi Pak.
Gimana Pak? Sehat Pak?
Wah, hadir.
Alhamdulillah.
Pak Dirsanto, sehat Pak Dirsanto. Mohon izin kami dari ruangan aja Pak Dirsanto.
Siap. Siap Pak.
Aman Pak, aman Pak.
Mia, apa kabar Mia?
Mohon izin Bapak-Bapak, kita sudah stream di YouTube.
Oh iya.
Ya.
Siap.
Tapi kami masih menunggu dari Melbourne.
Iya.
Kemudian menunggu dari Pak Daryanto dan juga Mikael Jasin.
Oke.
Rebecca juga belum masuk Pak.
Iya ya. Kita tunggu aja Pak. Kita tunggu.
Selamat siang Ibu dan Bapak, Pak Dubes, Pak Bos, Pak Direktur Pak Santo, Ibu Bapak Yusron Ambari.
Selamat siang. Apa kabar? Sehat?
Ya.
Saya kenal yang dari Melbourne siapa ya?
Ya Pak Direktur.
Mia, apa kabar Mia?
Baik, selamat pagi Pak. Salam dari Bali.
Gimana?
Pak
Sehat
Yusuf,
Pak?
sehat?
Sehat. Ini sedang berjemur ini di pantai ini, biar berasa di Bali.
Selamat pagi Bu Mia, selamat pagi Bapak-Bapak yang terhormat Bapak Dubes.
Selamat pagi.
Dari Kemenlu dan Bapak Ibu dari Kementerian Luar Negeri. Salam kenal, saya Agus Fedi mewakili Bapak Rektor ini. Terima kasih.
Selamat pagi Pak Gus. Terima
Pagi,
kasih. Pak Wakil Rektor ya.
Betul Pak.
Kita bisa kerjasama nih ke depan. Bagus sekali
dengan
Pak.
Senang hati Pak, dengan senang hati.
Iya Pak.
Selamat pagi Pak Agus Freddy, terima kasih Pak.
Selamat pagi Bu Gong ya, terima kasih banyak. Berapa orang kira-kira di sini? Oh, udah banyak ya.
Oh, Rebecca. Oh.
Mohon izin Bapak, untuk hari ini kita akan terbagi dua. Di YouTube sudah ada 50, sementara untuk di Zoom kita sudah ada 30.
Alhamdulillah.
Mohon izin kita masih menunggu beberapa speakers untuk lengkap.
Siap.
Kita ambil dalam waktu 5 menit.
Makasih.
Pagi Mbak, saya lihat Rebecca dan juga Mbak Tanti sudah join di attendees ya Mbak.
Selamat pagi Bapak Ibu-ibu.
Selamat pagi. Apa
Selamat
kabar?
pagi.
Sehat
Pak.
Iya.
Good morning everyone. Selamat pagi.
Selamat pagi. Good morning.
Morning.
Sorry, I'm a little bit late.
It's okay. We haven't started yet.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will begin the event shortly. So if you wish to open the camera, it would be really appreciated. Thank you. Dr. Santo Darmo Sumarto, Director of East Asia and Pacific Affairs, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia. Ms. Munira Rahim, Acting Consul General, Consulate General of the Republic of Indonesia in Melbourne. Mr. Agus Freddy Maradona, PhD, Vice Rector of Partnership and Entrepreneurship, Universitas Pendidikan Nasional. Distinguished moderator, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. Welcome to the webinar, Coffee Diplomacy of Indonesia and Australia. What's next? This event is a collaboration between the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia, Consulate General of Indonesia in Melbourne, and Universitas Pendidikan Nasional. Today, we have an excellent lineup of speakers that will give us opportunity to discuss about coffee culture in Australia, the characteristic of coffee market in Australia, and also an overview about the specialty coffee of Indonesia. Therefore, without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Santo Darmo Sumarto, Director of East Asia and Pacific Affairs of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia, to deliver his remarks. The floor is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Ibu Munira Rahim, Acting Consul General of Indonesia in Melbourne. Bapak Agus Freddy Maradona, Vice Rector of Undiknas University in Bali. Ambassador Bagas Hapsoro, Ms. Rebecca Hall, Ibu Dia Asmarani, Ibu Mia, Mr. Anna Mulani, ladies and gentlemen, friends of Indonesia. Good afternoon to all of you, or in Australia, I would say, good day, Mike. On behalf of the Indonesian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I'd like to welcome all of you to our webinar today, which is titled Coffee Diplomacy of Indonesia and Australia, What's Next? I would like to thank the Consulate General in Melbourne, the Victorian Government Trade and Investment Office in Jakarta, Universitas Pendidikan Nasional in Bali, Specialty Coffee Association in Indonesia, Australian Specialty Coffee Association, as well as SEETS for supporting this important event. Today, we are together on a kickoff event for our series of events, which is part of Indonesia's diplomacy, or Indonesia's coffee diplomacy in Australia, which is actually part of Indonesia's coffee diplomacy around the world. The program is part of an effort to support efforts towards a post-pandemic national economic recovery through economic diplomacy. And I would like to highlight that this is one of the important programs that is conducted by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. As you know, coffee is a very important commodity here in Indonesia. According to International Coffee Organization, in 2020, Indonesia ranks number 4 in the list of best coffee producing countries in the world. We produce approximately 12.3 million coffee bags annually, which is after Brazil, Vietnam, and Colombia. And the demand for specialty coffee from Indonesia has increased globally. It encourages to explore the possibility of promoting our coffee culture to our counterparts, to our neighbors, to our good friends, like those who are in Australia at the moment. I was once a Melbourneian. I lived in Melbourne for 4 years, where I went and did my PhD at Monash University. And I know very well what it means to be drinking coffee on one of the awesome coffee shops that dot the entire Melbourne area. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Indonesia-Australia Comprehensive Economic Partnership entered into force last year. Actually, it was last July. And we see this as a new turning point in the cooperation between Indonesia and Australia. Despite being neighbors and having historical linkages as far as before Indonesia's independence, the economic relationship between Indonesia and Australia remains a challenge for both our countries. And despite being two of the largest economies in these parts of the world and sharing geographical proximity, Indonesia is merely Australia's number 15 trading partner. We have lots to catch up here, but I think we could start off with a good coffee in the morning. Surprisingly, last year, Indonesia-Australia's trade increased by 7.63%, particularly when considering the difficulties we face with regards to the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. Therefore, I believe the ISEPA, the Indonesia-Australia SEPA, is one of the reasons that we could use in order to boost our economic cooperation. Last year, Indonesia managed to increase its export volume and decrease the trade deficit by 250 million. We have still a long way to go, but I believe that the framework for our cooperation has been set. It is now due time for us to concretely implement the ISEPA through programs such as this that we are doing today with regards to coffee cooperation between the two countries. As one of the largest producers and best coffee beans, including Sumatra Gayo, Toraja, Bali Blue Moon, Sulawesi Kalosi, various other brands or various other denominations that we know of, Indonesia is ranked number 9 in the world with a total export of 884 million US dollars. Australia, however, is only not even in the top 5 destination of countries for Indonesia's coffee exports. Our coffee beans mostly go to the USA, Japan, Malaysia, Italy, and Egypt. And last year, Indonesia's coffee to export to Australia only reached about 13.4 million. So there is immense room for us to explore. Now, the global coffee industry was negatively affected by the pandemic, COVID-19. However, in the last few months of 2020, we saw a positive trend in the recovery of the global coffee industry. Probably people are spending more time at home and drinking more coffee. I guess that's why one of the reasons why the coffee sales have gone up as well. The world coffee exports between October and December in 2020 have increased 6.1% compared to the same period in 2019. And this situation presents a good opportunity for Indonesia. It also presents, of course, a good opportunity for our trade partners such as Australia, not only to recover, but also to create a strong and sustainable post-pandemic coffee industry or coffee cooperation. With that, I have Pak Dubes ambassador, Pak Dubes' ambassador, Bagas Hapsoro, to lead us as our moderator in our discussions today. We also have fantastic speakers who probably have different angles on how we could strengthen our cooperation and coffee diplomacy. And with this, I hope that the webinar will be a good opportunity for us to strengthen our cooperation in this field and also strengthen our cooperation, bilateral cooperation as a whole. With that, I wish you a productive discussion and thank you, and hopefully you have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Darmo Sumarta. Now, I would like to invite the Acting Consul General of the Republic of Indonesia in Melbourne, Ms. Munirah Rahim, to deliver her remarks. Acting Consul General, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mbak Nisa. His Excellency Ambassador Bagas Hapsoro, Bapak Agus Predi Maradona, PhD, Vice Rector of Partnership and Entrepreneurship, Universitas Pendidikan Nasional, Ibu Dr. Anak Agung Ayu Ngurahtini Rusmini Gorda, Head of Undiknas Study Center, Bapak Santo Darmo Sumarto, Director of East Asia and Pacific Affairs, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, distinguished speakers and participants, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very delighted to join you here at the webinar Coffee Diplomacy of Indonesia and Australia, What Next? Allow me to take this opportunity to convey my highest appreciation to Ibu Rebecca Hall and Bapak Michael Yasin, as well as Bapak Daryanto Warsita and Bapak Anan Mulani joining us today as speakers. I would also like to thank the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia, particularly Directorate of East Asia and Pacific Affairs, TPPA, Victorian Government Trade and Investment, and Universitas Pendidikan Nasional for co-organizing this webinar. Distinguished speakers and participants, ladies and gentlemen, the timing of this webinar could not be more relevant. The Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement between Indonesia and Australia has been entered into force in July 2020. and it provided avenues of economic cooperation such as stronger trade and investment, as well as capacity building. And our webinar today will touch upon the economic cooperation. It will discuss coffee, an important commodity for both Indonesia and Australia. I also believe our webinar will also enhance our understanding on coffee scene in Australia, as well as enormous potential of Indonesian coffee. Ladies and gentlemen, it takes a good cup of coffee to power economic growth, and Indonesia is among the world's top coffee producing and exporting countries. Based on Statista in 2018, Indonesia sits at the 4th largest coffee producer in the world. In terms of export value, based on trademark data, in that year, Indonesia was ranked 12th and recorded $817 million USD in exported value, while in 2019 moved up to 9 and recorded $883 million USD in exported value. People say that coffee tastes better with a friend. And I must say, Australia is one of our friends in various sectors, including coffee trading. Bureau Pusat Statistik records that the export value of coffee from Indonesia to Australia totaled around 13 billion USD in 2020. And from Australia point of view, Indonesia was ranked 12 in 2019 and 11 in 2020 as Australia's source of coffee. I should mention here that Victoria is a top-notch coffee destination in Australia. Australia Bureau Statistic data shows that in financial year 2019-2020, Victoria imported coffee with total value reached around 233 million Australian dollar. From that number, Indonesia's export to Victoria ranked 14, reached around 3 million Australian dollar. That number is an increase over previous period with total 2.95 million Australian dollar. When we say Victoria is a top-notch coffee destination in Australia, I think we should put Melbourne's coffee culture as its crown. It is common in the morning to see Melburnians head to their beloved coffee shop and start their daily routine by sipping a perfectly prepared cup of coffee. I believe we will learn more about coffee culture in Australia in general and Melbourne in particular from our Australian speakers today. Melbourne is said to be one of the first places to hold specialty coffee. Seems like a fun coincidence. Indonesia is famous for having several specialty coffees. To name but a few, Aceh, Mandailing Coffee, Toraja, and Luwak Coffee. I believe our Indonesian speakers will be able to explain more about the potential of Indonesia's coffee, including the specialty ones. Distinguished speaker and participants, despite the increase in Indonesia coffee export to Australia in 2020 compared to 2019, we should be aware that some challenges remain. Some of them are brand awareness, coffee quality and quantity, as well as its consistency, high standard and strict regulation on food safety and management, as well as biosecurity issue. I just like when we want to get a good cup of coffee, brewing opportunities, potential, and challenges is needed to increase our export coffee to Australia, and in the same time, deliver best coffee to our friends in Australia. Now our own product in detail, understanding our potential customers and their preferences, find the right partner, comprehend relevant regulations, pay attention to labels and packaging, and the last one is maximize zero tariff provided by IACPA are some measures that we should consider carefully. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, once again, I thank you for your enthusiasm in joining with this seminar. And I would like also to express my sincere gratitude to Bapak Duta Besar Bagas Hapsoro for thoughtful ideas and huge contributions in organizing the webinar. I hope that our strong collaboration would last long in the future. I'm confident that this discussion will help explore challenges and opportunities related to coffee relations between our two countries. And I hope that our collaboration will positively contribute to our effort in increasing our Kopi relation in particular and our bilateral relations in general. Thank you very much.
Of Indonesia in Melbourne. Now I would like to invite the Vice Rector of Partnership and Entrepreneurship, Universitas Pendidikan Nasional, Mr. Agus Freddy Maradona, to deliver his remarks. Vice Rector, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Your Excellencies, Bapak Santo Darmo Sumarto, Director for East Asian and Pacific Affairs of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ibu Muniroh Rahim, Acting Consul General of KJRI in Melbourne, and Ambassador Bagas Hapsoro, Bapak Bagas Hapsoro, Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia to Sweden, Ibu Agung Mia from Undiknas, and Ms. Rebecca Hall, Victorian Commissioner to Southeast Asia, other distinguished guests, distinguished speakers, and of course the participants of this webinar. It's my great pleasure to be here and to deliver some remarks on behalf of Rector of Universitas Pendidikan Nasional. First of all, I'd like to express that we are proud to be a co-host of this webinar. And personally for me, the topic is very close to my heart because this is not only about coffee, but about a relationship between two great countries who are located in close proximity and who both countries have been in a, let's say, a roller coaster relationship. So I was in Australia between 2013 and 2018. I was doing my PhD in Sydney, and I was there during the time when the media, the situation where the media labeled as the all-time low in a relationship between Indonesia and Australia. And I remember that time I traveled between states in Australia. I left my passport in my apartment just because I didn't know what would happen if people know that I was Indonesian, but nothing happened. I can tell you that no matter what happens between the diplomatic relationship between Indonesia and Australia, I'm sure that the people-to-people relationship is always strong. And I believe it will get stronger with coffee, with a cup of coffee. Talking about coffee in Australia, I once read an article saying that coffee is a love affair in Australia because being Australia having a historical relationship with the British, and the people just don't drink tea, they drink coffee. I was shocked at the time and to see that the lines can be quite long in front of outside coffee shops, and including coffee shop at a university. And reading some statistics in this invitation letter, and I rechecked online, the statistics shows that even though Australia and Indonesia are closely located, we don't export coffee that much. And also we trade, but I think there is a big gap in a trade between Indonesia and Australia, and I believe coffee is one way to fill this gap. So Indonesia is one of the greatest producer of coffee internationally, and we have a wide variety of coffee, and including Bali, where Undiknas is located. Bali is also known as an excellent coffee maker, and I hope any programs that can be followed up after this webinar can be very beneficial to coffee farmers in Indonesia and in various regions in Indonesia. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure that during this pandemic, many business activities had to be slowed down, including tourism in Bali. So I hope that after the pandemic, one way to strengthen the cooperation between Indonesia and Australia will go beyond tourism. And I believe coffee trade will be one of them. So I won't be long in providing in delivering these remarks, but I would like to wish everybody a very engaging discussion, and very fruitful ideas will come out of this webinar, and Uniqueness will be ready to support any programs that will come up from this discussion. Thank you.
Vice Director, Mr. Agus Freddy Maradona. Now, allow me to invite all the panelists, all the speakers, for a photo session. So for this photo session, please open your camera. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Even behind the mask, we can still see your smile. One more time. 1, 2, 3. Show us the best smile, because I'm sure everybody has coffee already this morning, right? Okay, thank you very much. Now we will proceed to the discussion session, Coffee Diplomacy of Indonesia and Australia. What's next? As I've told everybody earlier, that we have an excellent lineup of speakers today. We have Mr. Daryanto Witarsa, Head of Specialty Coffee Association of Indonesia, Ms. Rebecca Hall from Victorian Commissioner to Southeast Asia, Ms. Anang Agunglia Intantilia from Universitas Pendidikan Nasional, Head of ASEAN and International Studies Center, Mr. Anand Mulani from SIS Blockchain Technology, and Mr. Michael Jasin, a winner of Indonesia Barista and World Barista Competition. And for this discussion, we have an excellent, a fantastic moderator, Ambassador Bagas Hapsor. Therefore, I would like to give the floor to moderator of the day, Ambassador Bagas Hapsor, to commence the discussion session. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Anissa. Thank you very much. Good afternoon in Australia. Good morning in Indonesia. Good day, Mike. Honorable Bapak Dr. Santo Darmo Sumarto, and I recognize the presence of Pak Yusron Ambari, Ibu Muniroh Rahim, Bapak Agus Freddy Maradona, and I recognize also the presence of Ibu Dr. Ana Agung Ayung Ngurah Tini Rusmina Gurda, and I think, yes, with all participants, students from Undiknas, University of Indonesia, TPPE. Thank you all for the speakers, for your inspiring remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce myself. My name is Bagas Hapsoro. This is Sanskrit name. I'm a coffee lover. Nearly 5 years living in Sweden. I know how coffee makes my life better than before. So I agree with Pak Maradona, so I'm happy we have Maradona here, that the coffee can fill the gap, any problem whatsoever, not only Australia, in Indonesia, but also other problems. So I think this is a kind of new life for all of us. And I'm happy that right now I can meet and talk with friends who are authorized to make us a good discussion with a cup of specialty coffee. Firstly, Pak Daryanto Warsita, I think this is the newly chairman of the Specialty Coffee Association of Indonesia, but this is not new. In this business, especially with the common grounds of business, and we do have also Pak Michael Yasin. Michael Yasin is I think one of the champion Indonesia Barista Championship in 2019. And he is also a Master of Marketing at RMIT, Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology. So it seems to me that we do have a lot of Melbourneians in this forum, including Pak Director. Thank you, Pak, and also Pak Maradona. So distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I would now like to invite Pak Daryanto to introduce your team and also your vision on Specialty Coffee Association of Indonesia, including introducing Pak Michael Jasin. Pak, you have the floor. Silakan, Pak Daryanto.
Okay, good morning, everyone, and good evening for everybody in Australia. Let me introduce myself. My name is Darento Witarsa. I'm the current chairman of Specialty Coffee of Indonesia, and I just sat on this position for about 1 month. And yeah, good morning to Your Honor, Bapak Dr. Santo, Ibu Morino, Bapak Bagas, Dr. Agus, and Ms. Rebecca Hall, and other speakers. And it's grateful to be invited to be one of the speakers today, but let me briefly introduce to all of you a little bit about SCAI. So SCAI was founded in 2008. So our goal is to be an association where we have members of specialty coffee. So we take care of members who are farmers and also baristas and also coffee shops. And yeah, thank you, Pak Bagas. And I just want to briefly introduce. I am also a cafe owner, Common Grounds coffee shop, and my coffee shop also inspired a lot by the trends of Melbourneian coffee shops. So specialty coffee, we serve brunch, and we serve good breakfast. And also with SCAI, our job is to be a bridge of the specialty coffee in Australia. I think if I'm not wrong, just now it was mentioned that along these years, there are not many coffees in Indonesia that were to be imported to Australia. And hopefully we can bridge and build a good relationship with the Australian is it an ACA, Specialty Coffee Associations. And without further ado, I would like to introduce you Mikhail Jasin, who is currently the Indonesian Barista Champion, and he is also ranked number 4 in the world. And he's also sitting in the compartment of education for SCAI. So yes, Mikhail Jasin.
Thanks, Yanto. Yeah, good day, everyone. My name is Mikhail. As probably mentioned a couple of times before, I have very fond memories of Melbourne and Australia in general, having spent 10 years in Australia doing study and also working as a barista. So I am also a founder of a company called So Good Coffee Company, and we work closely with Indonesian coffee farmers to produce better quality green beans. We help them ferment the coffee and help them potentially export better quality coffee, that way improving their livelihood. We also open source all of our fermentation steps and coffee processing steps so that people that we haven't worked together with or people across the world have the chance to replicate what we do in Indonesia. I'm also the Barista Champion of Indonesia. I used to work at Common Grounds with Daryanto, and I learned a lot of my skills of trade actually from being a barista in Melbourne. So I learned a lot from being there and serving coffee, but also learned a lot from ASCA, which is the Australian Specialty Coffee Association. And part of that, I actually want to apply to what we do here in Specialty Coffee Association of Indonesia. I happen to be the head of education compartment. So what we are trying to do here to give education to not only baristas, but also farmers and cafe businesses, and basically how to create an ecosystem where everybody thrives, be it domestically or internationally. So relationship like either exporting our coffee beans to Australia, or our baristas can learn from baristas in Australia, where obviously it's a much more mature coffee industry, and there's a lot to learn from there. So I think that's all from me. Obviously, we can talk more after this, but yeah, that's it so far, Pak Bagas.
Thank you, Pak Michael. We still have time with SCAI. If Pak, you're still with us, right? Pak Michael Jasin, until 10. So,
until 10:05.
Daryanto, you would like to
Yes,
add something on this,
I'm
please?
still here. I mean, honestly, I'm here for discussion and have anything that from the SJI we would like to accommodate. If you have any ideas, any brainstorming ideas where we can future collaborate with the Australian ASCA, I think it will be great in terms of education, exporting coffee, and we are feel free to open up our hands and welcome them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We still have 2 more speakers on the list, so let's just hear and listen to the presentation by Rebecca and Ana Agung, and of course Pak Anan Mulani later on. So please, Rebecca Hall, the Victorian Commissioner for Southeast Asia.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone, for the opportunity to join you today. I've had a couple of coffees already this morning, and hopefully you can see my smile. I'm beaming with pride, actually, to hear of so many alumni and those who've experienced life living and working in Melbourne. In fact, you're doing my job for me in promoting our great state and our coffee culture. I do want to acknowledge, as others have before me, those who make today's webinar possible or conversation possible. Pak Santo, Ibu Muni and Pak Agus, thank you for setting the foundation and for enabling this conversation. And of course, to my fellow panel members, I'm really looking forward to, I do have some slides, so sharing some slides and information, but also in being part of the conversation. I have a few things I want to focus on today, particularly from our perspective around why coffee diplomacy and why now. Around, of course, Melbourne and Victoria, how we view coffee diplomacy. I'll share a bit about what's happened to date and what's next. But in thinking about what's led me here, I want to just start with 3 C's. Now you can guess we're on a call about coffee. So one of those C's is absolutely coffee, and it brings us together. It brings an ecosystem together, which is global. And as Pak Santo introduced, we as Victorian government are working more globally on a coffee diplomacy strategy, but Indonesia is our first point of call for that conversation. So coffee brings us together. My second C is curiosity. I think we know now more than ever we need to approach our work, our engagement, our understanding of what's happening in the world with curiosity. And it was that curiosity that led me to read Mia's paper that was produced last year on the Jokowi government use of coffee diplomacy. As a former scholar in international relations and public diplomacy, it was that curiosity that I think has led us to this conversation here today. And I think the final C, which we will get to, is collaboration. This is an area where we can all find our unique wins, where we can all play to our strengths. And I'm very keen to use those 3 C's to continue to drive our engagement. So Mia, I'll go to the next slide, as I said, which is just to talk about why coffee diplomacy and why now. And many of the previous speakers have acknowledged this. But of course, we think IA-CEPA provides a perfect backdrop for us to take advantage of lowered and in fact 0 tariffs on coffee from Indonesia into Australia, but also on the broader opportunities that IA-CEPA offers Australia in terms of our access and engagement with Indonesia. For me personally, I would usually be based in Jakarta. My position is based in Jakarta. I have not been able to get to Jakarta. So I've been thinking creatively about how do I stay connected, and coffee, I think, has come up as a key angle there. So we're thinking about it because we have been restricted to travel. Our usual business and community engagement or our trade tools have been unable to be used. So now is the time. And I think finally, we have unique assets to leverage, that this is a space where we are clear in what Indonesia and the Indonesia coffee sector or more broadly might be focused on. And we're also starting to firm up what we think success would look like for Victoria. So I'll go to the next slide, Mia. So this is very rough. In fact, I'm sharing with you emerging thinking and hoping to collaborate to create what our coffee diplomacy strategy looks like. But for us, of course, we are interested in continuing to grow our brand. And as I said, great that we've got some brand ambassadors on the line today, and how do we continue to grow that? We are interested in being able to use coffee as a platform, not just talking about coffee, but talking more broadly about our education, trade and investment. Of course, we are a very big exporter of food and agricultural products into Indonesia and more broadly around the world. So we see opportunities for other innovation in food and agriculture. And particularly maintaining a connection with our alumni, students, cafe operators in Indonesia, and of course ultimately then supporting our local cafe sector in Victoria, or I should say our broader coffee ecosystem in Victoria. So I'll go to the next slides, which are just perhaps some familiar images. I said to my team, find me some images of laneway coffees or things to make us wish we were back in Melbourne experiencing that right now. Many of the previous speakers have touched on Melbourne's unique coffee culture, how important that is to us living in Melbourne, but also how much it creates a special place in people's hearts when they leave Melbourne as well. And for me, in my role as Commissioner for Southeast Asia, I'm here in Singapore, Jakarta, KL, Ho Chi Minh City. You'll find Australian, Victorian homegrown coffee roasters, cafes seeking to recreate that Australian, or we would say that Melbourne cafe feel. And some of you on the line have been part of creating that. So how do we continue to support that growth and engagement? How do we continue to drive a shared education around that, whether that's on sustainability, whether that's on innovation, whether that's around hospitality, service and design. So great opportunities there for us to continue to build on what is a natural asset for us, but also to learn and collaborate as we go. I have a few more images here. I didn't pick out any one coffee shop. I'm also aware that competition is very strong around who has the best coffee. And in fact, that's one of our marketing ideas that we would love to engage on that conversation as well. Yeah, just a couple more here. As an example, I'll go to the next slide, I think, which goes into what's happened already. Now, I'm just picking a few examples just for context, and some of you on the line probably know a bit more of what's been happening. But certainly, February just last year, we were delighted to welcome Governor Ridwan Kamil to Melbourne. And here are some photos here of him and the Mayor of Melbourne, Sally Capp, officiating the opening of Jabarano Cafe in Melbourne. Also, our Governor of Victoria was able to visit Bandung in 2019 and also see directly production there at a coffee plant. So at a provincial level, and certainly for our broader trade and investment, we're very keen to work directly with those individual provinces where specialty coffee is being grown and developed, and of course to continue to see Indonesian coffee culture, whether that's through your coffee products or all the other value add, be part of our Melbourne story. We've also, I'll go to the next slide, we've also been able to see, and I know this was early collaboration with Common Grounds, St. Ali Cafe being established in Jakarta as well, and I believe being able to trade and continue during COVID as well. So the export of our cafe, or the partnership of those industry leaders to be able to share this around the world. I'll go to the next slide because I'm conscious that I'm taking a bit more time. We have a world recognised barista champion here, and I know that's a key part of our engagement. And I think this is a photo from one of the World Coffee Championships. But our philosophy is that we believe that coffee diplomacy can unlock value for us in unexpected ways. So we are very interested in the coffee part of coffee diplomacy, but also in the broader enabling component to that. And as much as we are trying to define what that looks like, I think we have a chance as partners and collaborators to unlock value that we're not even aware of yet. So I'll close on, I guess, the call to what's next. And for us, these are some of the things that we're thinking of. We know actually that the possibilities are quite enormous. So the question for us now is, how do we sharpen our focus? How do we find common points of interest for us to work together on and align our efforts? We also know that the actors involved are varied, all the way from growers, SMEs, baristas, consumers, importers, distributors. So how do we bring them together, and acknowledging the role of our specialty coffee associations on the Australian side and the Indonesian side to help us continue to do that. And I guess where I started, as we're continuing to manage through COVID and global travel is impossible, how do we continue to use this time to engage and advance our interests? So we're looking at all of those with the lens of our 3 Cs. We're curious to know what we can do together. We want to collaborate, and I think, coffee is going to be a central theme for all of us in achieving what's next. So I'll leave it there, and hopefully that was just a bit more context in terms of what we're thinking of and how we wish to collaborate with you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think everyone will agree with you with the 3 C's: coffee, curiosity, and collaboration. And let me congratulate on behalf of our friends here for your appointment as commissioner for Victoria to Southeast Asia, and I'm confident that you will do a great job representing your business and trade interests in the region. Let me invite now the next speaker is Anak Agung Mia Intellentia. Please. Agung Mia, silakan.
Thank you, Ambassador Bagas Hapsoro, for the opportunity given to me. I'd like to greet everyone very good morning here. Greetings from Bali, Om Swastiastu. This is such a great opportunity, and I'd like to also greet Director Santo, Darmo Sumarto, Ibu Muniro as well, Bapak Agus Freddy from Universitas Pendidikan Nasional, the Vice Rector, thank you very much, Ibu Dr. Guntiri Gorda, and also the speakers, Bapak Daryanto, Bapak Michael, Rebecca, thank you, nice to see you again here, still virtually. We had 3 meetings and everything is virtual, but it's okay. I hope we can finally later meet in person. And also Bapak Arnan Mulani. I'd like to introduce myself as well. My name is Mia. I'm a lecturer. I'm the head of ASEAN and International Studies Center at Universitas Pendidikan Nasional in Bali. And I actually would like to appreciate this kind of event, this webinar, as a real implementation of a collaboration, one of the C that Rebecca has mentioned previously. And we see here in this webinar, we see the element from the government, and we see from business sector as well, the owners of like some coffee shop who actually can talk and give their views regarding coffee diplomacy, media as well. I've invited several media from Bali to join this event, and communities such as Coffee Association and also coffee networks. And myself here, my role here is as an academic, so I'd like to share with you my perspectives from academic point of view. I see the urgency of this event as a potential actually for a micro, small, and medium enterprises specialized in coffee, particularly amid the COVID-19 pandemic. And from the academic perspective, I'd like to actually emphasize the importance of spreading awareness about how we can see coffee as part of both economic and also cultural diplomacy. And this is actually also in line with my university, Universitas Pendidikan Nasional, with the goal of being a techno researchpreneur university, and by saying that 2021 is the year of entrepreneurship. So all of this part of the collaboration actually can work together and have a real action that hopefully we can do something more after this webinar and this discussion. And I would like to divide my presentation into 3 parts. The first one is I'd like to talk about cultural diplomacy. The second one is I'd like to talk about education and research, and particularly about my previous publication that Rebecca has mentioned previously, that actually connects me with Rebecca and also Ambassador Bagas Hapsoro. So from here, we can see how a publication, an academic publication, can actually bridge connection and collaboration among different actors or different parties. And the last one, I'd like to talk also about youth involvement, because in this webinar, I invite my students from Universitas Pendidikan Nasional. Also, I invite students from Australia, 2 students who did their internship at Universitas Pendidikan Nasional. So we try to keep the connection with this webinar, for instance, and also to see how young people, young generation who are watching this webinar actually can contribute something as well. So the first one is about cultural diplomacy. When we talk about cultural diplomacy from academic perspective, talking about the conceptual framework of cultural diplomacy, we are talking about how a country can represent various aspects and can be linked to the concept of persuasion and also branding. In this context, we are talking about how Indonesia wants to brand its coffee, Indonesian coffee, with various types. And in Melbourne, in Australia as well, would like to brand it as the coffee capital, and also highlight the coffee culture, which is actually important part of this coffee diplomacy. And the purpose of cultural diplomacy is to build trust and also cooperation that can provide mutual benefits for both countries. I do agree with what Rebecca has mentioned previously. Success is different in each perspective of the actors, and hopefully with this collaboration, we can have mutual benefits from both countries, both Indonesia and also Australia. And talking about cultural diplomacy, we do agree with coffee as a commodity with high economic values mentioned previously during the remarks presented at the beginning of this webinar, but we also would like to acknowledge and also emphasize the importance of cultural relations through coffee drinking experiences. Pak Agus Freddy mentioned earlier that he remembered the time in Melbourne because of the coffee drinking experiences. Everybody can share their personal story about this coffee drinking experiences, which actually connects us with this cultural relations. Therefore, seeing coffee from the economic values is important, and cultural diplomacy as well. And seeing it as a part of a lifestyle by sharing the process of the coffee until we can enjoy a cup of coffee with visual storytelling, with the philosophy of the uniqueness of each variety of coffee. In this context is, for instance, Indonesian coffee, with different type of coffee from different region and different lifestyle of the farmers, different culture, and the philosophy in each of those unique process has to be highlighted as part of a cultural diplomacy. And cultural image of drinking Indonesian coffee by sharing the value of togetherness, dialogue, a conversation, which make people can feel a good ambience in drinking a coffee, especially Indonesian coffee. And I'd like to quote this again from the Australian Embassy in Indonesia 2018, that Australians and Indonesians share a love of coffee. So this kind of cultural diplomacy as part of way of life can foster mutual understanding and also can strengthen the people-to-people connection. That's the first part about cultural diplomacy. The second part of my presentation is about education and also research. I'd like to introduce my publication entitled Coffee Diplomacy in Jokowi's Era, the Strategy of Cultural and Economic Diplomacy of Indonesia's Foreign Policy, published in Journal Ilmiah Dinamika Sosial of Universitas Pendidikan Nasional. It was a preliminary study with qualitative approach and data collection from official websites and media coverage from 2014 till 2019. And because of the response of people for this publication, I intend to create the second publication, obviously, for the second term of Jokowi's era, still to expand the publication and research regarding coffee diplomacy. In my previous publication, there are some findings that I'd like to share to all of the participants and also audience that on how cultural and economic diplomacy through coffee conducted by even President Jokowi himself and also his administration are connected to one another. So cultural and economic diplomacy are connected to one another and can be conducted simultaneously. And coffee diplomacy is not only to share the values and story of Indonesian coffee drinking culture, but followed by a discussion on the business potential. And the second finding is both bilateral and multilateral approaches are still relevant to Indonesia's coffee diplomacy. And I can see the initiative from Indonesian government, especially Ministry of Foreign Affairs, by having series of events, including this webinar, to actually expand the Indonesia's coffee diplomacy. And that's something that should be appreciated as a real effort made by the Indonesian government. And I highlight also that both state and non-state actors are actively involved in conducting coffee diplomacy, including government, companies, educational institutions, civil society groups, and individuals. Therefore, my future recommendation in terms of education and research is encouraging more research collaboration. One of the recommendations given by Rebecca has sent me some context information for Australian university that I can approach in terms of having a research collaboration of coffee diplomacy. And I will follow up on that, and hopefully we can have a joint collaboration and later can publish a joint academic paper in terms of talking about coffee diplomacy from the perspectives of Indonesia and Australia. And because there are a lot of students joining the webinar today, I'd like to also encourage student participation for this source of research collaborations to write something about coffee diplomacy in terms of economic and cultural diplomacy. So student or like young generation can be part in this academic environment to have an academic discussion through academic paper of cultural diplomacy and economic diplomacy of coffee. The third part of my presentation is about youth involvement. I'm actually very happy to see that the Specialty Coffee Association of Indonesia are filled with young people. So I do hope that after this we can talk more and discuss more about this kind of a collaboration that can actually involve young generation, especially students as well, university students, because they can play important role, especially about a digital engagement on social media, promoting coffee, sharing their story, sharing their lifestyle, sharing their experiences. But that actually can spread more information in terms of education to a broader audience. So digital engagement is very important. And talking from the academic perspective, the role of university, including Universitas Pendidikan Nasional here, is very important to support young entrepreneurs. I have invited several small coffee business at Undiknas. They are young entrepreneurs who are trying to expand their coffee business. So it's important for university students to actually see this potential and see this opportunity to start doing something that they can. And I'd like to share as well that recently I had this intern students from Australia as part of Australia-Indonesia Youth Exchange Program, which is one of the most prestigious exchange programs between Indonesia and Australia. And we can actually add this kind of information or discussion in terms of coffee or other topics so that young people can also share their point of view, share their challenges, or share their insights, ideas, and a solution to tackle all the challenges that we have. through scholarship, a youth network, and organization. It's also important to have the collaboration. And the last point of my presentation today would be to have this recommendation that after this webinar, we can have a training or a workshop on coffee-related skills such as entrepreneurship, a barista course, maybe educating the farmers in terms of talking about sustainability, for instance, or micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as a young entrepreneur from students as part of the university. So with this discussion, we can share our ideas from different perspectives, and after that, we can have something that we can follow up as the next step of this collaboration and this initiative. That's all my presentation. I'm looking forward to having more discussion with all of the speakers and also all of the participants. Thank you very much, Matur Suksma. Ambassador Bagas, thank you.
Matur Suksma, Mawali, Anak Agung Mia, thank you very much. Well, I know that Pak Michael Yasin will be leaving soon, but thank you for the permission from Pak Anand Mulani that will take 5 minutes for the Q&A. I have 2 questions here. Number 1 is, this is from myself. Gungmia has mentioned about 4 things, or 3 things: cultural, diplomacy, education and research, youth involvement. How about the empowerment of women? Because Pak Michael Yasin already mentioned before, not today, but I remember the empowerment in Kopi Gayo Aceh, they are very, very influential. And I think this is the time for us to also to take a look, what is the role of women? So this question is related to Pak Michael Yasin, that's number 1. And then the next question from Muspita, but I will give the floor to Pak Michael Yasin. Please, Pak Michael.
Yeah, I think I always say this every time I talk about coffee. I believe that coffee has the power to change. I term it agent of change. It has the power to change basically the livelihood of everybody, right? From people who only drink coffee, from being sleepy to being energized, to people like myself who was a barista in Melbourne, just doing my thing during university days, and then ended up becoming my career. But on a more profound level, I think it's an agent of change for coffee farmers and growers in regions of Indonesia like Gayo, Flores, Papua, Makassar. And every pockets of coffee growing regions have their own sort of people and community that are impacted greatly by coffee. And yeah, in terms of Gayo, there's one farmers, I can't really remember the name. I want to say it's Kitara Co-op, but all the pickers and all the processors are women. So traditionally, coffee are very patriarchal sort of society. You see a lot of male baristas, you see a lot of male coffee farmers, and older. But in this particular place in Gayo, everybody is a female, right? It's owned by a local woman, and she tried to empower everybody through that. And I think this is something that we can explore more through this collaboration between Australia and Indonesia. Doing an incentive where if the coffee support women empowerment, then you can put a premium on it, and then customers, the end users in Melbourne or anywhere in Australia, can be informed about that. So I think it's something that can definitely be explored, and something that is already done in countries like Rwanda or Uganda. And it's part of what makes specialty coffee especially attractive to younger generation, because younger generation are traditionally more socially conscious, and they do care about where the coffee comes from.
Correct.
So
thank you very much. Rebecca, you want to add something on this?
I was just going to acknowledge how the Australian Association, the specialty, and you said, Michael, you've learnt a lot from engaging with them, but just seeing their initiatives around women in coffee here in Australia, we're growing that. It's certainly something that, in terms of values, that our agency holds true. The role of women in trade in our society more broadly. So I think that's actually a great question, Ambassador Bagus, around how we make sure that in our collaboration we're acknowledging the role of women.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now I have another question from Muspita Dewi. This is directed, I think, to Pak Daryanto. The question is, can Indonesian bean coffee like Aceh Gayo, like Jambi Kerinci, no, I have Suryono here, or Flores Bajawa compete in the Australian market? Pak Daryanto, you have the answer, Pak? As a head of a specialty coffee association.
Hello.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Sorry, Pak. I was on the road. Yeah. I think pasti, Pak. So far, all the coffee that were mentioned to you, of course, we can compete. Obviously, it will go back through how the coffee is being processed and being selected. So, if you know, coffee in Indonesia currently mostly sold as commercial coffee. Only percentages about 5 to 10% sold as specialty coffee. So I think there are still room for us to grow and learn and to expose those specialty single origin coffee to Australia. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I know that I still have 4 or 5 questions from the chat, but
yes, sure.
The floor for Pak Anan Mulani or Pak Victor from SIDS. Please, Pak Anan, you have the floor. Silakan, Pak Anan.
Yeah, thank you, Ambassador Bagas, to actually get us involved in this whole discussion. Maybe I will share a presentation that we have made already so that everybody has an idea of what SEEDS are and what it's doing and what the platform is all about. So SEEDS itself is an agriculture supply chain traceability platform. We have started this in 2018. Seeing a lot of issues that come about between trading and exporting of coffee beans, namely the sustainability and farmer livelihood. So, sorry. Okay, just apologize for that. Okay, let me just go with this. So the traditional commodities market that we have come about is that there has been no trust and no proof of the commodity itself, where the origin comes from, how the sustainability is provided, of course, comes with lack of payment transparency and logistic as well. And then comes the digital era where internet come about, where then payment transparency is available, logistic availability is there, but yet there's still no trust of proof where the commodity is coming from. And this happens a lot, especially for export market. And then comes the new blockchain technology, where we have adopted that we can actually trace the commodities. We have the trust and proof of where the origin comes from, who are the farmers involved, the processors involved, and of course the financial transparency and logistic that can be tracked from end to end. So what SEEDS does? SEEDS is actually about empowering every value-added player within the primary market supply chain through transparency, traceability, and data-driven process optimization. We provide 360 degrees traceability. And of course, we also provide the whole platform of supply chain where you can show the movement of the coffee beans from the farmer processors up to the logistic traders and to the end product, to the end customer, which is the coffee shop. And our mission here is actually to give back to the farmers, to prove traceability that anyone in the supply chain node can actually tip the farmer. With this whole idea and concept, we can actually show that this is the actual origin and these are the farmers involved in every coffee bean that is made into a cup of coffee. And so what we have made is actually 3 different nodes, which is the alpha node, beta node, and Charlie node, where the alpha node is connected to the farmers. And as the buying desk in Indonesia for smallholder farmers, the processing house is the first pinpoint of the purchase of green beans, or actually cherries from the farmer. So the alpha node is connected to the farmer node, where they actually input all the farmer data that they buy the goods from, at what price, and also the harvest point, lens size, etc. And then from the alpha node, it goes to the beta node, which is the trader or the warehousing node, and also involving the logistics movement between the processing house to the trader. And the Charlie node will be the roastery, where the whole roasting process come about before it goes to the end cafe or the coffee shop. And here as well, we actually get the quality control node involved, which is actually the coffee lab, a certified coffee lab. The certified coffee lab that we're working with is 5758 from Bandung. They are a certified coffee lab by SCA, and they're here to give a fair perspective of the goods or of the commodities purchase, which is the coffee beans, and they become the pinpoint for any issues during tracing back, quality control, especially recall process. And what we provide is actually a seeds dashboard. And this is where you can actually see whatever process goes on and trace for the traceability and the movement of the commodity. It's an easy operation. It's like a mini ERP. You can see real-time inventory management and simple payment that is actually integrated already to the platform. And what we provide as well in the feature is not only the overall view, but we provide, like I said, a mini ERP where there's payment management, transaction management, inventory management, cost management, and user management. Why we actually add this is because the processors or the smallholder farmers in Indonesia, they have always been inputting manually. What we're trying to do for them is actually digitizing their process to actually provide historical data and at any point of time to see whether there are any issues with the commodities or green beans that they have sold or transported. Again, to add on to this, the main issue here was there have been a lot of export issues where the coffee bean that has reached to Australia or Europe, there have been issues with it, but then it cannot be traced back from which lot or from which processing farm or from which farmer to actually stop the process, and so that can be rectified. And this is the end product that we provide, a QR code sticker to be able to be scanned and then see the whole traceability as well. The traceability works directly from the processor up to the trader, to the roastery and the coffee shop. It's all completely integrated, where at the end of the coffee shop, the end customer can actually scan the QR code and see who are the farmers involved in it, the process involved in it, the roastery involved in it, the cupping score given by the coffee lab, and also the logistics movement of when the harvest point is to the end date where the coffee shop received it. And what we're trying to do as a bigger picture, we're trying to create an online marketplace for traceable coffee beans. And this whole purpose is actually to create a buyer linkage platform that connects overseas buyers and Indonesian processors or smallholder farmers. And I guess the timing couldn't be better, sadly, because of Corona. But due to the whole idea that it's difficult now to travel around, this whole technological platform will provide that security and confirmation for the buyer as well for the coffee beans that they buy. And so far, we have proven the concept and we have already gotten few products out, even for export purposes. We have 5,551 farmers on board, 5 processing farms, 3 traders, and 5 roasteries already using Seeds platform. And just to introduce again, as me as the co-founder, and also Victor itself, who is actually part of the attendee. So we both came up with this whole idea in 2018 due to a lot of misconception of Indonesian coffee bean, where people actually buy Mandling coffee bean, but what they got was actually Bali or Flores Bajawa's coffee bean. And with those cases as case studies, and also a few research that have been made by ACIAR, we decided that blockchain technology would actually be able to solve all these issues with the whole idea of traceability and digital ledger. And just again, this is our small team. We have blockchain developer and senior developers working full-time on the project as well. And I guess that's all from me. If you guys have any question, sir, madam, please feel free to shoot at any point of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Anand. Thank you very much. Well, this is also important things that always involved in any and also in many coffee business: technology, sustainability, and traceability. Thank you very much. I'm so happy that a lot of questions from the chat. And I think the next question, if I just would like to read out, I think from Anissa, is it correct? I think this is from Michael from Universitas Gadjah Mada. And he asks, as mentioned by Gong Mia, coffee is a commodity, but coffee is also part of culture. And the question is, how do Australians drink their coffee? Do they love their coffee strong or light? What level of body and acidity preferred by the Australians? And the second question from Nadia from Universitas Jember. Melbourne is the facto capital coffee of Australia. Where should I start if I want to sell my coffee beans there? Any standard my coffee must fulfill? Rebecca, I think this question is devoted to you, so please.
Yeah.
If you have an answer.
I'll start with the first one, and then also maybe hand to the Consul General as well for the important role that they play in helping access. But firstly, about types of coffee and how do Australians love their coffee. I'd be happy to share some reports following this as well in terms of consumer demand and changing of consumer demand. But I was on a call this morning as well with our broader team talking about coffee. And one of the best things in Australia, I think, is the diversity of how we like our coffee. I know we are well known for the flat white. I think we believe we invented it and created it in Melbourne, but actually the diversity of how people drink and partake in coffee is quite immense. So there's a lot of consumer insights that are being gathered around that right now. It does vary state by state. I personally was born in Sydney, grew up in Brisbane, just south of Brisbane, and moved to Melbourne only 6 years ago. And I don't think, maybe it's just because I got older or I needed more coffee, but I didn't fully appreciate, I think, coffee culture and the diversity of that until going to Melbourne. So I think you have micro communities or micro groups that are testing and trialing and working in different areas. I think the key word here is specialty. I mean, Australia does produce some coffee, but we're never going to be a major producer. And I think, as I heard from one of the other speakers as well, obviously Indonesia is a major coffee producer, but how we grow how you grow your specialty coffee products, that's the key market that we're looking at. And that is quite a sophisticated market, no doubt a competitive market as well. I must say, if our colleagues from the Coffee Association were on the line, they would also have more insight to share. So I'll say, I think, in addition to some of the follow-ups that have been suggested, we would love to enable a coffee chat between the two specialty coffee associations to discuss both training but also access as well. I'm not sure if Consul General or anyone else wants to talk in terms of access, but at a federal level, in terms of bringing in products into Australia, that is our Department of Agriculture who sets requirements around that, and I can certainly share that with any of the audience as well. And while I have the floor, Ambassador, I just want to acknowledge Anand's presentation and the work of seeds and that traceability. That goes to one of the objectives that we have in coffee diplomacy, which is around research and innovation and the use of technology in agriculture across the board. So the work that you've done there with seeds is really impressive, and hopefully we can continue to talk about that with the work that our Agriculture Victoria colleagues are doing as well.
Thank you, Rebecca. Yeah, really hope that seeds can be the bridge of trading coffee beans between Indonesia and Australia.
Thank you, Buster. Hopefully I answered those questions. Anyone else might want to add to that as well, particularly some of you that are operating or have operated in both markets?
Yeah, the fact that a lot of coffee companies from Indonesia try to expand their export to Australia, like last week, I think to Sydney. I think this is from West Java, and as you rightly mentioned, that last year also Jafarano, and I think that Natal Harris is with us. But this is another question from the audience, and I would be happy to read out. This is from Aldo Arnold, and I think this is directed to all speakers. The question is, would running an online coffee or coffee bean business be able to stand out in the competitive online market during today's crisis? This is very challenging. Maybe I will start with Pak Anan and then Pak Daryanto. Pak Anan, please, Pak.
Sorry, Pak Bagas. Maybe if you don't mind repeating, I was muting it for a little bit. Sorry.
Okay. Would running an online coffee or coffee bean business be able to stand out in the competitive online market during today's crisis? I think during pandemic.
I would say 100% for sure, because now we're entering a digital era where everybody's sitting at home and actually doing all their purchases online. I think the traction of online marketplace have never seen such a big spike during this whole Corona period. I would say that what we're hoping is that the buyers would actually be able to get that actual traceability, so they really get the original product, not just based on marketing and gimmick that everybody would make a nice packaging for online purposes, but actually not giving the actual product that is meant to be. So we really hope that Seeds platform can be used for online trading or online marketplace, where people can actually know the origin, cupping profile, and get educated more on coffee beans rather than just enjoying a cup of coffee based on a certain marketing gimmick.
Thank you very much. Pak Daryanto, you would like to add something on this?
Okay, I think that side is more towards on the green bean side and on the roasting side, but towards on the product side, like the retail side, like coffee shops. I mean, coffee shops are always based on experience, the service, the customer service, and coffee making skills and everything. Like for example, so yes, you can get a bottle of good ice cold latte from online, but you cannot get a fresh cappuccino, hot cappuccinos from buying online. So I think it's a mix. It's a mix. There are some products that you can sell through online, like retail roasted beans, green beans, but the experience of you sitting down in the coffee shops, like how you feel in Melbourne, something that cannot be replicated online. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And the next question is from Undiknas. More or less the same line with already asked before, from Dewa Ayu Putu Putri Agung Cahyani, Undiknas. The question is, can opening a coffee business now develop the economy in the Indonesia during the current pandemic? And how are steps to start opening a coffee business for the younger generation? Anyone would like to, or maybe Anak Agung, you would like to say something?
Well, thank you, Ambassador. I've seen some of my friends here in Bali, they actually encounter various challenges to actually keep their coffee business during the pandemic, but I've seen some innovation as well. I do agree with what Pak Daryanto mentioned, that we cannot really experience a hot cappuccino if it's an online coffee business, but I've seen some innovation that how do they try to survive during the COVID-19 pandemic is by making a big bottle of a latte. They sell it online to their friends in order to actually still survive for their coffee business during the COVID-19 pandemic. But I do agree the experience is obviously different than having to come to cafe or coffee shop and drink coffee there. But in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic, I've seen initiative from small enterprises in terms of coffee to survive in this COVID-19 pandemic. So to Dewa Ayu Putu Putri Agung, I think if you are now thinking of opening a coffee business, a small one, maybe online initiative in terms of starting to become a young entrepreneur, I think the possibility is always there, as long as you have creativity and innovation on how to run the business and to start the business.
Thank you very much. Maybe Pak Victor or Pak Anan would like also to add what already mentioned, because this is the question from younger generation regarding the coffee as also our lifestyle. Silakan Pak, kalau ada tambahan tadi.
If I maybe can just add a little bit, the whole idea of entrepreneur on a coffee shop has always been intriguing, and especially like Ibu Agumia also mentioned that this is the age of entrepreneurship, and I completely agree on that. It's just that there has been a lot of new startups working on coffee shops and cafes that has been bombarded all over Indonesia, that people has lost track on what good coffee is all about. And it's more about coffee with sugar and milk. Like Padaranto also mentioned regarding the iced cafe latte that can be delivered to home. So I think for actually mentioning about opening coffee shop, that it is going to be really tricky in the future. I think the whole idea of the young generation or young entrepreneurs could probably enter more towards the processing and the farming to actually create better quality of coffee beans that can be appreciated by exporters, actually, or by Australians, by Europeans, and all those sorts. So yeah,
very interesting.
that's my insight.
Thank you very much. Ibu Munirah would like to add something, Acting Consul General in Melbourne, on this very question. Silakan, Bu Munirah. Yes, Bu Munirah.
Ambassador, actually, I would like to just to add the question from Ibu Nadia. I think Bu Nadia is asking about where should I start if I want to sell my coffee beans, or is there any standard in Australia if he or she want to sell their coffee to Australia? I think I already touched a little bit in my remarks regarding Australia put a very high standard in terms of food and food security. Among others is how to make some kinds of packaging and labeling. It is important for all products who would like to enter Australian market to abide by the labeling regulations of Australia. First, like the product should be in English. Like for example, this kind of product. So if you already make packaging like this, so you should put English explanation. I think it is important not to use Indonesian language. This is the first. Secondly, actually, we have to include the country of origin. It means that where the coffee is being produced, is it in Indonesia or it is from another country? So in the packaging or it should be mentioned about country of origin. Secondly, it is I think it should be about also nutrition fact. So we should mention about what kinds of nutrition in the product. And we have also to mention about when the product will be expired, and then if you have some kinds of certification, for example, certain certificate you have to mention, but it should follow the Australian rules and regulation. And the last one is you have also to put the importer and exporter address and contact. So it is important to put all the information in the packaging. And then the last one is that if you would like to sell your product to Australia, besides the producer should follow all the rules and regulations of Australia, they can find the partner from Australia to some kinds of pameran exhibition, because in Melbourne there are so many exhibitions, so we can come here to exhibit your product. If sometime Indonesian company is this small, you know, they cannot come here just to join the exhibition because it is much very expensive. So sometimes they can join, they can use the internet to sell the product, and usually sometimes the Indonesian consulate also hold some kinds of business matching to their partner here in Melbourne or in Victoria. I think that's Ambassador Bagas. Thank you so much.
Yes, I think this is more on opportunities than challenges. And you mentioned very rightly that Victoria is a top-notch coffee destination in Australia. Once you get that, and then there will be success. And also you have to follow all regulations from Australian government and health certificates and trade as well. And you mentioned also during your remarks, Ibu Munirah, that Victoria import the coffee with total value reached around 233 million Australian dollar. And this is big. and Indonesia is also there. So thank you very much once again, Ibu Munirah, for the answer. I still have two more. This is from Raylin, Universitas Jember. Raylin asking, how does the coffee industries in Australia, Melbourne particularly, survive or adapt in the pandemic? Maybe Rebecca would also like to make a short answer on this.
Yeah, and I think I can link that question to the earlier one as well about, you know, setting up a coffee shop and the ecosystem there. So where do I start? Obviously, Melbourne, more than any other Australian city, experienced the lockdown for a concentrated period of time. So that has had a significant impact, particularly on our central business district and on our cafes and restaurant owners. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago, we also had to have a circuit breaker on the weekend of Chinese New Year and Valentine's Day, which, if you can think for cafes and restaurants as well, significant impact. We are fortunate, though, that our government recognises that whilst we're putting health first, we also need to support business during that transition. So as an example, in that recent circuit breaker, any business, including those coffee shops in the CBD or who were impacted, were able to apply for a grant back from the government to offset the cost of lost goods or lost bookings. Many of our cafe owners in Victoria would have been eligible for some other grant programs to support them, including our what we call our Job Keeper program, where government was subsidising the cost of staff. That was a federal government program. Obviously, individual cafes have fared very differently depending on their responses, and we've heard and seen some great examples of innovation. In fact, some of you may have seen Potato Head co-founder and owner Jason Gundawan, who's actually residing in Melbourne at the moment, and he's opened a new cafe during COVID out of his garage, apparently, and it is an absolute hit. So he and that innovation is coming forward. So, but it does depend on the locations, on the audiences that you served or the consumers that you served as well. Our CBD cafes and our CBD full stop, I think, have been impacted very heavily. But with that crisis and with that disruption, I think comes the motivation and the incentive to innovate and to do things differently. So whilst I'm not discounting how difficult this time has been, I do think we want to focus on the innovation that's emerged. Now, some of that innovation I expect will be in supply chain management, so where people were accessing coffee from before. And I'll link this back to the other question, Ambassador, around purpose as well. So social enterprise business, or the social enterprise sector in Melbourne, but Australia more broadly, is a growing part of our community. Many cafes, smaller cafes, have been set up around the social enterprise model, and I think we will continue to see more of that in terms of how we're using coffee as the connector for community and not for profit. Also, to the question of consumer tastes as well, we also know that we are choosing our coffee now not necessarily just on taste. I mean, taste has to be there, our preference is there, but we are choosing it on destination and origin, and we're making those choices on the basis of claims to and the ability to show sustainability and otherwise. So that those elements, I think, all bode well for continued innovation.
Thank you very much, Helena. The next two questions is more or less similar. This is from Caroline from LIPI. The other one's from Ronak Naligala. And this is, I think it's not only for Australian, but also for Indonesia. How do we face the challenge of our farmers' limitations in participating actively in global market, since we must ensure fair benefit is well received by them? And second, from Ronak Naligala, what would be the best solution for coffee shops to escape from their loss of profit during this pandemic, seeing that most places are forced to close. You know that we have heard a lot of explanation, especially from Pak Anan and also part of it also from Pak Daryanto. I think one of the answer is the technology. The technology we discussed also Pak Ibu Anan, Ibu Anak Agung regarding the relation between cultural diplomacy, education and research, and education and research. We have a blockchain technology from seeds with the participation of youth involvement and empowerment of women. I think on this I would say this is a very, very classical question. We have to answer with all across the board. It's not only the issue of pandemic, the issue of recession, but also and the involvement from all actors. But perhaps Ibu Ana Agung, maybe you would like to have some response from from Rebecca Hall regarding your future or your recommendation on cultural diplomacy, education research, youth involvement, and I add something additional, empowerment of women. Perhaps Rebecca, you would like also to respond on what is the best answer to cultural, because this will be the next recommendation, the next steps. Where do we go from here?
Wow, I think that would be pressure good on that question actually, because and I think interesting to note, as government, we are looking for opportunities to continue to grow prosperity in Victoria, but also across the region. So I guess the answer for me, and I don't mean to be indirect, but the answer is whatever can deliver us either the individual, the community, or our states and countries the best value around that prosperity. I'm not talking about prosperity just in terms of making money as well. I'm talking about sustainable engagement, sustainable supply chains, and ultimately improved experiences for the communities who are involved. I do, and I am a coffee lover. I don't know the coffee industry inside out as a coffee expert as well. So I'm sure there are others who would know the business environment better than I do as well. And perhaps as a follow-up, it is getting our colleagues from the Australian Specialty Coffee Association to come and deliver their comments and their vision on that as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone from the speaker would like to say something on this, because we are approaching the end of our discussion, but more or less something that we can have some discussion, not summary, but any takeaways from this. I would like to invite perhaps number one is Pak Daryanto, number two Pak Anan, Ibu Ana Agung, and Rebecca. First, Pak Daryanto as the head of Specialty Coffee Association of Indonesia. Pak Daryanto, silakan Pak.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pak Bagas. Honestly, what I'm looking forward is what can we do in the future. I mean, honestly, from the ACAI side, we are more than happy to welcome any future collaboration and future work that can be done. I'm more than happy to welcome everybody with open arms. Yeah, thank you, Pak.
Thank you very much. Pak Anan or Pak Victor, you would like to make another perhaps observation on this?
Yeah, I think we're on the same track as well, me and Victor, that we're looking forward that we're after the same value and norm for the sustainability as well, and to actually provide better social format in this whole trading between Indonesia and Australia. So really, we hope that for the future, there's something that can be done to showcase the technology and the sustainability using Seeds blockchain platform. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ibu Ana Agung, Mia, please.
Thank you, Ambassador Bagas. I'm really happy as well to be part of this insightful webinar and to have this discussion. And after this, I'd like to follow up on the research from the academic perspective, research collaboration with some recommendation mentioned by Rebecca to some Australian university and preparing the proposal. So hopefully after the I can publish a joint publication in terms of coffee diplomacy, especially from economic and also cultural diplomacy. And moreover, I'm looking forward to actually contact Pak Daryanto and Pak Michael and Pak Anand to have a training or workshop to the use of technology, and also a barista training maybe, or entrepreneurship training as well to students, to younger generation, and of course to public, so we can have a follow-up from this event. Thank you very much, Ambassador.
Thank you very much. Yes, Rebecca.
Ambassador, yeah, thank you very much, everyone. It has been a fascinating conversation. I don't think I've seen anyone drink a cup of coffee yet. Maybe we've already had our fill today. I'm going to add, for our action, I'm going to add a fourth C, which is connections. You know, I know I'm passionate about this and that we have a role, or we have an interest as government, but I want to make sure as a follow-up that we're continuing the right connections. So for us and for my team, and I do want to acknowledge Ibu Tanti, who's on the call and who's been a great partner in driving this work with Mia and with our collaborators, making sure that we're connecting the right parts of the ecosystem. So I already have some actions from here as well, but making sure that we're when we're making those connections, that it's great to create the foundation, but also then to connect that with what's next. I would acknowledge in those connections our Australian government colleagues, those from the embassy there, also consul generals in Makassar and around Indonesia. I think there's a great opportunity for us at the state level to also align our efforts with them. And I don't think we can underestimate the importance of the technology side as well. And so I think that's probably something I underestimated or didn't fully appreciate until coming today. So that will definitely be one of the connections that we will continue.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Thank you. Well, I don't want to make a summary on this very, very rich discussion. And thank you very much for the wonderful explanation, presentation from the speakers. I think we always reminded by the statement made by the director for East Asia and the Pacific, Dr. Santo, and also Ibu Munirah Rahmat and Pak Maradona, Vice Rector. I think several opportunities that can be explored to increase Indonesia exports already there, because the comprehensive economic partnership agreement between Indonesia and Australia just last year, and less than a year, July 2020, and the diversification of global supply chains due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I think Rebecca just mentioned very, very right on this issue, supported by all speakers. I think we need to have a framework to unlock bilateral economic partnership. And Indonesia has been a, you could say, growing market for Australian goods and service exporters. Likewise, there is a potential market for Indonesian specialty coffee in Australia. And I think this is all quite opportunities, not challenges, opportunities for Specialty Coffee Association of Indonesia, Pak Daryanto and friends. And the amount of coffee from Indonesia in Austria has started to increase. Authentic Indonesian coffee has been processed and sold in several cafes in Australia. And Bu Munirah mentioned also, my consul general also in Sydney, Pak Heru Subolo mentioned, and my ambassador also mentioned. And this is really good news for all of us. And what else? Some takeaways that we can grab from this one on our coffee diplomacy. You know, I think this is also very special because Indonesia and Australia have had a good connections since the formal establishment of diplomatic relations, 1949. And we enjoy this, connection, and we also survive, and we try to have a more collaboration. I just mentioned about the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. I can also mention other things, and this is also because of the influence by both governments, Australia and Indonesia, RCEP, Regional Economic Comprehensive Partnership. I think this is the strongest multilateral or regional commitment that we have made on this issue. And I agree with Ibu Munira. Melbourne is said to be one of the first places to hold specialty coffee. And I'm so happy that I was there. I can drink a lot of coffee from Aceh, Mandailing, Toraja, and Luwak coffee. So we hope that in the near future, the revival of coffee will also start from these cities. Dear friends and participants, thank you for your attention and participation at this webinar. May we always be given health, happiness, and safety. See you at the next meeting, because there will be business discussion on coffee specialty between Indonesia and Australia. And I would also like particularly to invite the president of Specialty Coffee of Australia Association. And this will be, I think, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs would like to announce maybe less than 2 months from now. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Swastiastu. Om Santi, 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 Om. Have a safe and great day. And I give now the floor to Anissa. Please, Anissa.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Bagas Hapsoro. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please to give a big round of applause for our ambassador, our moderator of the day, that has doing amazing, amazing, amazing job. So thank you very much, Ambassador, as moderator, and also to all the speakers, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, as we have come to the end of the event, we would like to once again thank you for your participation, for all the speakers and also the participants. And we look forward to have you again in another event, of course, about coffee and of course about Australia. So we wish you well, we wish you health, and we wish you a good day. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, friends.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Pak Anan. Also,
Terima kasih, Pak Anan. Terima kasih, Pak. Teman-teman semuanya.
Dubes.
Terima kasih, Pak Direktur. Terima kasih, Anissa.
Terima kasih, Pak Dubes, Rebecca, and everyone. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Cassie, off to get a coffee now.
Oh yeah, we should. All of us should.
Sampai ketemu, Pak Agus. Terima kasih, Pak Agus.
Oke, terima kasih banyak.
Izin live dulu ya. Terima kasih.
Mute aja sampai.